20 teams for the first time yesterday in the NBA, and let's go over all the games starting out with the Pacers win over the Pistons. They started off really strong in this one. They went on a 12-4 run to start the game. Indiana did counter, but the Pistons were fighting hard. They went right back. They were playing really well early on. Some strong defense against one of the best offensive teams in the league. And they ended off the first half really strong. They were up by as much as double digits near the end of the first half and went up by 9 heading into halftime. Started off back and forth, but then Indiana went on a massive run. They caught fire for like a 3-4 minute stretch. They took the lead, but once again, the Pistons quickly countered. They went on an 8-0 run to end the third quarter to take an 8-point lead heading into the final frame. Detroit just ran out of gas in the fourth quarter. They weren't able to hit really any of their shots. It was by far their worst quarter on the offensive side of the ball, and the Pacers slowly but surely, gradually got back in the game, took the lead, pulled away, and were able to escape with an opening night win. Indiana fans would have liked this game to be a lot less sloppy, but a win is a win, especially on opening night. Offense was pretty efficient from 2, but really inefficient from 3. They went 42 and 38 from the field during the game, but just 9 of 31 from long distance. Were able to show off a lot of their depth tonight. They were able to win despite a rough game from Tyrese Halliburton, who only had 15 points, 5 rebounds, just 4 assists for him, goes 6 of 18 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3, but even with that, the Pacers were able to get a win. Shots include Pascal Siakam, who had a nice all-around game, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, had a few quarters where he was looking really strong, first and third quarters from my recollection. Miles Turner was pretty cold for most of the game, but he was fantastic in the third quarter. Looked like the best player on the court for Indiana in that frame. TJ McConnell doing TJ McConnell things. He was big in the fourth quarter, always scrappy off the bench, just a guy that I miss so much in Philadelphia. He's such a great basketball player. Benedict Mathurin, he had a fantastic fourth quarter. He had 14 points in the final frame, really led Indiana down the stretch, helped them pull away. He was great for them. Fortunately for them, their backup big and James Wiseman suffered a non-contact injury just 4 minutes into his season. He was playing pretty well too. It was such a shame. Came up, he pulled a 3, and he just landed awkwardly. Nobody was near him. I really hope he's okay because that was just so unfortunate to see. They played some solid defense. I will give them a lot of credit. I really liked their defensive effort, and it was something that clearly J.B. Bickerstaff emphasized in the offseason that the team needed, but their offensive game just was not good enough to get a win. They shoot just 43% from the field, 27% from 3. They also made 9 threes, but they shot 33 attempts. Interesting night for Cade Cunningham. He had 3 really bad quarters, but he had 1 sensational quarter. That third quarter that he had where he had 18 points on 8 of 9 shooting genuinely kept Detroit in the game, and it helped give them the lead heading into the final frame. But his other 3 quarters, he made 2 shots combined out of his 14 attempts. It was just a tale of 2 different games for him. That one third quarter, he was sensational. Outside of that, just was not his night. For Jaden Ivey, he had 17, 5, and 4, but he was just 5 of 13 from the field. He was able to get to the line well. However, he did get his ankles taken by Benedict Mathurin late in the fourth quarter. Strong night. He had 13 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists. He was a perfect 4-4 from the field, only missed 1 free throw, and his defense isn't perfect. We all know that, but it did look a little better out there. I would be really encouraged if I were a Detroit fan and I saw what I saw from Jalen Duren. Tim Hardaway Jr. went 4 of 7 from 3, didn't do much late though. Tobias Harris started off really strong in his first half in his second stint as a Piston, but went cold down the stretch, had a bad second half, and That was kind of the story for Detroit in general. Their offense wasn't as bad in the first half, but it just all fell apart in the second half. The only reason they were in that game is because Cade had a beautiful third quarter, and if that didn't happen, the wheels would have fallen off much sooner. But if I were a Pistons fan, I'd be happy with what I saw. Only losing by 4 to a team that just made the Eastern Conference Finals in JB Bickerstaff's first game as a head coach, be impressed with what you saw, even though the offense wasn't great. One thing I forgot to mention, while he didn't have his best game on the offensive side of the ball, he was just 2 of 6 from the field. Ron Holland was an absolute pest on the defensive side of the ball, and I loved the intensity that he brought to the game for the Pistons. Team's next games are Friday night, with Detroit traveling to Cleveland and Indiana traveling to New York. Cavaliers, they got a dominant win last night, beating the Toronto Raptors 136 to 106. Short-handed Toronto team just never had a chance against the Cavaliers. They kept it close with a back-and-forth first quarter, but once the second quarter hit, Cleveland turned it on, and they dominated this game on both sides of the ball. They went on big runs. They were playing great all around. The Cavaliers won the second quarter 36 to 17, taking a 20-point lead heading into half, and it was over from that point. Cleveland even started off the third quarter really well and just made this a total rout. Had a super efficient night on the offensive side of the ball. They went 58.6% from the field, 46.7% from three. They made 14 of their 30 attempts from long distance, and they held Toronto to just 42% from the field and made them had 18 turnovers. Led by Evan Mobley last night, who had 25 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 stocks, which are steals and blocks combined, and he goes 9 of 14 from the field while also playing great defense on Scotty Barnes. It was just a fantastic game all around for him. Solid, efficient all-around game for him, 21 3-3 with 3 steals on 50% shooting. Karis LeVert had a massive third quarter. He had 15 points in that frame, went 6 of 6 from the field in that quarter. He had 19 points in general on 8 of 9 shooting in a really good game for him. As an efficient game with 14 and 7, and he had 4 blocks. He looked really strong on both sides of the ball. Georges Niang was hitting his threes. Ty Jerome looked pretty strong off the bench. I know a good amount of his points were in garbage time, but even in the second quarter, he was making some really nice passes, was playing well. The only guy that really had a bad game for Cleveland was Darius Garland. He had 7 points, 1 rebound, 6 assists, was just 3 of 12 from the field. Handed Raptors team just did not have a chance against the playoff contending Cavaliers. No Kelly Olynyk, no Bruce Brown, and of course no RJ Barrett to add insult to injury. After a strong start from Emmanuel Quickley, he had 13 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists in 14 minutes. He goes down with a hip injury. He had to miss the second half, and he might have to miss some time as well. One lone bright spot for Toronto, it was Chris Boucher of all people. He went 4 of 5 from 3, 5 of 9 from the field. He led Toronto in scoring with 18 points. He did have a solid game and was probably Toronto's best player. Not a good night for Scotty Barnes. He had 9 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, was a brutal 3 of 14 from the field, and just got outplayed by Evan Mobley, plain and simple. 16 points, but he was just 5 of 13 from the field. Mitchell came in relief for Emmanuel Quickley. He had 8 points, 3 assists. He went 4 of 10 from the field, but missed all 3 of his threes. Ochai Agbaji didn't do much. Jakob Poeltl didn't do much, and he had 5 of Toronto's 18 turnovers. One bright spot off the bench was Jamal Sheed. He had 10 points, 4 assists, but it was just overall a night to forget for the Raptors. We'll look to rebound Friday at home against Philadelphia, and the Cavaliers will have their home opener Friday night against the Pistons. Speaking of the Sixers, they were another team that was handily defeated last night, losing 124 to 109 to the Milwaukee Bucks. One of those games that was back and forth in the first quarter. These teams were trading blows. It was a low-scoring defensive affair to start the game. And then once the second quarter hit and Milwaukee's shots started falling, the game completely turned in their favor. Dominated the second quarter, winning the frame 36 to 24. They dominated the third quarter just as much. They scored 42 points in that frame. It helped them pull away. They were up by as much as 22 at one point for a very strong opening night victory. By their superstar duo, Damian Lillard completely took the game over in the second and third quarters. Combined in those two frames, he had 26 points. He was 6 of 7 from downtown during that point. He was on fire and completely took that game over, along with Giannis getting 25 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists. He had a really efficient game, was 8 of 11 from the field, and he was getting hacked all night long, which led to him getting 16 free throws, which, he's Giannis. He was only able to make 9 of them, but still a very strong night for him. Prince also had a solid game. He had 16 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, was super efficient from the field, going 6 of 7. Bobby Portis, he also had a really good game, 16 points as well. He was 7 of 10 from the field. Gary Trent Jr. was 11 points, 50% from the field, made 2 of his 5 threes. Pat Connaughton had 9 points of his own. The only real key rotation player that didn't play well in my eyes was Brook Lopez, who had 10 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. He was 3 of 11 from the field. I mean that just specifically on the offensive side of the ball, by the way, because he was a menace on the defensive side of the ball. He did a great job stopping Tyrese Maxey from going into the paint. It seemed like every time that Maxey was going to cut it and make that right-handed layup that he loves to do, Lopez was right there to swat it away. Strong strategy for Milwaukee to do a 2-3 zone on the Sixers. It led to Brook getting 6 blocks, and it was just an all-around great win for the Bucks. Actually had the chances that they wanted to. They were able to get 98 shots off compared to 80 from Milwaukee. They got 3 more rebounds. They had 17 on the offensive glass and had just 10 turnovers. The Sixers' strategy was clearly to get extra chances and hope that would be enough to beat Milwaukee, but they just had a horrible night on the offensive side of the ball. 41.8% from the field, just 25.8% from 3, going 8 of 31 from long distance, and that's what killed them in the end. Tyrese Maxey, really rough night for him. 25 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, looks good on the surface. Then you see he went 10 of 31 from the field. He was put in hell by Milwaukee's defense. They did a great job on him all night long. Like I said earlier, he was just really clunky, and without Paul George, without Joel Embiid, it was clearly just not there for the Sixers last night. For the Sixers, Kyle Lowry had a strong night, 13, 4, and 6. He was one of the Sixers' only efficient shooters. Gershon Yabusele came off the bench. He got 10 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. In his first NBA game in years, he looked pretty solid. Andre Drummond, we all know how good of a rebounder he is. Kelly Oubre, positives. He had 21 points. He did have some really good points in the games for the Sixers, but he's got tunnel vision, man. When he gets the ball, we all know that the possession will end with Kelly Oubre. Caleb Martin, 12, 9, and 3 in his Sixers debut. Could have been better, could have been worse, but the Sixers' three-point shooting is what killed them. They just couldn't make anything from downtown. They weren't able to capitalize on their second chances as much as they would have wanted to, and it led to them losing. Heading to Toronto for a game Friday night, and Milwaukee is going to have their home opener Friday night as well as they take on the Bulls. We have the Orlando Magic's 116-97 win over the Miami Heat. Was mostly back and forth in the first half. Miami started off pretty strong, but Orlando was able to quickly counter to make it tied by the end of the first quarter. And the second quarter, more of the same thing happened. Miami jumped out a little more early on, but Orlando quickly countered and then had a strong end of the second quarter, which led to them completely dominating the second half. They took that momentum from the end of the first half and tripled it in the third quarter, where they completely dominated on both sides of the ball, winning the frame 39-18, turning this game into a blowout. Orlando ended the night with a 20-point win. They looked great on the defensive side of the ball. They were awesome on that end. Hold Miami to just 39% shooting from the field. So even though the Magic themselves shot 42.7%, they were able to get the win thanks to their elite defense and the fact that Orlando was fantastic on the offensive glass. They were killing Miami. 16 more rebounds in total. They had 16 more second chance points as well. Orlando wanted it more, and they showed it. Great win for them. By their young star wing duo of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Paolo has 33, 11, and 3 on 50% shooting. He goes 4 of 8 from downtown as well, which is really encouraging. Franz, also very encouraging. He went 50% from downtown as well, and he had a very efficient 23, 4, and 4. They both had great games on both sides of the ball, and if I was an Orlando fan, I would be ecstatic with the way they played. In his Orlando debut was just 0 of 5 from the field, not his best game on the offensive side of the ball, but he was great on the defensive end, and he fits in with that Orlando scheme perfectly. If he gets that shot down, oh my goodness, is Orlando going to become scary, because the Magic went 18 of 49 from 3, 36.7%. They took more than half of their shots from 3, and Orlando's big issue last year was their three-point shooting. They were one of, if not the worst three-point shooting team in the league last year. If they can fix that problem, they are going to become a massive threat in the Eastern Conference, because they didn't even have their best night on the offensive side of the ball. Wendell Carter Jr. didn't have that good of a game. I just mentioned before, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope didn't have that good of a game. And even with that, Orlando was able to get a blowout win against the Miami Heat, who are a team that a lot of people do still seem to like, and they were able to completely take both Jimmy and Bam out of the game. Had a really strong first half. He had 15 points in that first half, and they were an efficient 15 as well. Anthony Black, he had 10, 6, and 4 of his own, showing off his all-around play, his strong playmaking as well. Jalen Suggs, 11, 2, and 4. He was efficient as well. And in general, great win for Orlando. Not a good night for the Miami Heat. Their leading scorer, Terry Rozier, gets 19 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Started off pretty well in the first quarter, but he had a really rough go at it the final 3 quarters. He finished the night going 5 of 15 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, but the real big thing that I noticed from Miami is both Jimmy and Bam were completely taken out of the game by Orlando's defense. They go a combined 2 of 13 from the field. Bam, just 9 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 of 5 shooting. Jimmy, 3 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 of 8 shooting. What a job by the Orlando Magic and Jamal Mosley to completely take those two guys out of the game. Make an example out of Orlando's defense was Tyler Hero. He had 14 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists in the first half. He started off the game really strong. He ended the game in total with 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. He did virtually nothing in the second half. Orlando completely neutralized him at all facets in that second half. Nikola Jovic, he had 15, 5, and 1 in 24 minutes. Jaime Jaquez Jr. came off the bench, gave 13 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists in 19 minutes. And then as the game got later on and as it turned more into a blowout, we started to see more of the lower end depth and the young guys for the Miami Heat. And this is just a game that they're going to want to forget. They'll look to get another win in their home opener Friday against Brooklyn, while Miami doesn't play till Saturday, where they travel to Charlotte. Have the Atlanta Hawks close 120 to 116 win over the Brooklyn Nets. Credit to the Nets, they fought really hard to stay in this game. No, not that way, Nick Claxton. I'll get to that later. But seriously, the Nets did stay close in this one throughout. They actually won the second quarter by double digits to help give them the lead heading into the half. They were fighting really hard, back and forth battle through the first few quarters, and in the final frame, they just lost it a little bit at the end. I mean, it kind of doesn't help that Claxton comes in, clotheslines Dyson Daniels. He gets a flagrant 2. He would have been ejected. He was ejected from the game. Might get a suspension. You never know in today's NBA. But despite a great performance from Cam Thomas, Brooklyn was not able to hold on and get the win. Atlanta fought hard, got some great play from their star player Trae Young. They had a career performance from Onyeka Okongwu. Just a good overall win for the Hawks in general. As said, Onyeka Okongwu has a career night for the Hawks. He has 28 points, 8 rebounds, an assist, 3 blocks. He goes an insanely efficient 11 of 12 from the field, and you can just tell that his chemistry out there was apparent with both Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. Speaking of Trae Young, he has a great game as well. 30 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists, 7 of 16 from the field. You might want a little better, but when you get to the line 16 times, all those problems go away. Dyson Daniels, he fit in really well. I knew that he was going to fit more than DeJounte Murray. I think, of course, DeJounte is a better player, but Dyson's going to fit with this youth, big guy. You need a defensive guard next to Trae Young, and he is exactly that. He had 15 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 steals. 5 steals. Goes 50% from the field. DeAndre Hunter, 12 points, 6 rebounds, an assist. Inefficient 3 of 10 night. The rookie, Zachary Reese-Sachet, he came off the bench. 7 points, did go just 2 of 8 from the field. But you could tell that he played some great defense. His defensive capabilities were very apparent from the start of that game. And lastly, Jalen Johnson, 11 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 stocks. He did it all, 4 of 9 from the field, just wasn't able to hit any of his 3 3-point attempts. Hawks played more of an interior game, which actually led to them getting a lot more free throws. So even though the Hawks took 11 less shots, you have to look a little more into it sometimes. The Hawks took 46 free throws tonight compared to the Nets' 25, and you take the math together, that's about 10 possessions right there. So there wasn't really a possession discrepancy like you would think there would be. Atlanta had about the same amount of possessions as they did. They just used their interior game to get to the line more. Cam Thomas, outside of his rough 1 of 7 first quarter, was great for the rest of the night. In the final 3 quarters, he was, as I look at it, 13 of 20 from the field in those final 3 quarters. He ended the night with 36 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. He had 20 fourth quarter points. He tried his very hardest to get the Nets the win. It just was not enough. Best me for the Nets was Jalen Wilson. He came off the bench, had 16 points, 4 rebounds, looked really solid all around. He had a nice little game. He made all 8 of his free throws and was by far the Nets' second best player out there in my eyes. Didn't have his best night. He had 14 points, 4 rebounds, but shot just 40% from the field. Dennis Schroeder also didn't have his best night. 13 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists. He was really inefficient, and he had 5 turnovers. Dorian Finney-Smith played solid defense, but was just 3 of 10 from the field. Ben Simmons, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. Did Ben Simmons things. Great rebounder, great passer. Still doesn't look to the basket. Kind of just his MO. Nick Claxton, he came off the bench. He's on a minutes restriction due to a hamstring injury. He had 7 points and 5 rebounds on 3 of 4 shooting before his clothesline on Dyson Daniels. I am wondering to see if the league is going to suspend him. I'm 50-50 on it. I personally wouldn't, but you never know with today's NBA. And both Zaire Williams and Noah Clowney did show flashes off the bench as well. Just some nice play for the young guys. Brooklyn could have had it, but you got to be happy with staying close against the team that's going to be trying to fighting for a play-in spot this year. Anything's going to be positive for the Nets this year. We know that they're not going to try and win games. You're just trying to see who is going to be a part of this team in the future. And if you can get Cam Thomas performances like that, I'm going to be happy. Look to rebound Friday night as they take on the Magic in Orlando, and the Hawks will have another home game as they take on the Hornets. The Pelicans 123-111 win over the Chicago Bulls. Another game that had a very back and forth first half. We saw New Orleans start off pretty strong, but then the Bulls in the second quarter had a really big run at one point. I think it was a 17-3 or 17-5 run at one point to give them the lead in the second quarter. They fought back and forth, but the third quarter is where New Orleans really started pouring it on. They started the quarter off really well. Chicago kind of stopped the damage for a little bit, and then the Pelicans went crazy to end the quarter again. They won that frame 36-25, gave them a double-digit lead heading into the final frame. They were up by as much as 14-15 at one point. The Bulls came back for a few minutes. They cut it to as close as, I believe, 8 or 7, but then again, the Pelicans went on a run, went up by as much as 16, pulled away, and got the win. The big thing that helped New Orleans get this win was the amount of extra chances they got thanks to forcing 21 Chicago turnovers. Both teams actually shot pretty similar from the field. Chicago went about just under 49% from the field and just under 30% from 3, while New Orleans actually shot worse from the field. They went about 46.5% while going 38% from 3. Were led by Brandon Ingram last night. He had a strong all-around game, 33 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. He was 13-25 from 3 and made 3 of his 5 shots from long distance. Was another guy who had a good game for New Orleans. He had 23 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, was 9-19 from the field, and he made 5 of 11 of his threes. Really impressed me for the Pelicans was rookie Yves Missi. He had 12 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks, made 5 of his 8 shots, and is a guy that if New Orleans does want to go big at some point, is someone that the Pelicans can definitely use. I was really impressed from his NBA debut. Like I said, that the Pelicans do want to go small. They decided to start Daniel Tice at the 5 tonight, and he did have a pretty solid game. 8 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 stocks, was efficient. Another guy that had a good game, Jordan Hawkins, he had 13 and 7 off the bench. He has such a great jump shot. He was 50% from downtown. It was a bit of an off night for Herb Jones on the offensive side of the ball. Just 2 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Made just 1 of his 6 shots, but was his normal self on the defensive end. However, the one thing that really sucked about this game for the Pelicans was what happened to DeJounte Murray. Late in the fourth quarter, he broke his hand on a shot. He came down, didn't want to be helped up by the broken hand. He's most likely going to miss about 18 to 20 games, and this early on in the year, especially as DeJounte's first game as a Pelican, that's just something that really sucks to see because we had been anticipating how DeJounte was going to play in New Orleans so much, and now he has an injury to start the year out. I really hope he's okay. I hope that when he comes back, he's going to be 100% and going to be able to contribute to this Pelicans team. Zach LaVine led the charge. He had 25 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. He had an efficient night as well. He was 10 of 17 from the field, made 5 of his 8 threes. He had a huge second quarter, but his turnovers was an issue. He had 7 turnovers on the night, and he was just a little sloppy with the ball, and that comes, with shaking the rust off. It had been his first game in a long time, but he did look very strong for not playing basketball in like 7-8 months. Also had a solid night. He had 21 points, 11 rebounds. He was an efficient 8 of 12 from the field and made one of his 2 3-pointers. Also impressed me in his Chicago debut. He had 15 and 5 off the bench on an efficient 5 of 8 shooting. Had his ups and downs. He had 14, 5, and 3. He was 5 of 11 from the field. His positives, of course, he's a great playmaker. He can rebound the ball well. He finds lanes well. It's just, he's one of those guys that when he's on the court, the spacing gets so much worse. And especially at the end of games, that becomes an issue. Had a down night, had just 10 points, 6 assists, was a very inefficient 4 of 13, missed all 5 of his threes. Patrick Williams also had a quiet night. He was just 2 of 7 from the field. Ayo Dosunmu, he made all of his shots from inside the three-point line, was actually 4 of 4 from 2, nice little all-around game, but missed both of his threes. I'm going to end this on a positive note for Chicago. It was great seeing Lonzo Ball back on the court, even if it was for 13 minutes. He had 5 points, 4 assists, 50% from the field. Just awesome to see him back playing. Everybody had talked about how he should retire, how if he's ever going to play again. Just seeing him on a court again was awesome, and he played pretty well. You can still tell that the Bulls are a better team when he is on the court. His vision, his playmaking, he reads lanes really well and opens up the Bulls' offense a lot more when he's on the court. Look to rebound and get a win Friday in Milwaukee, while New Orleans will look to start 2-0 in a game Friday night in Portland. Charlotte Hornets came back from down as much as 18 at one point to win 110-105 over the Houston Rockets. First half, this game looked all Houston. They started off really strong. Their star players are playing really well. Şengün and Jalen Green started off this game really well, and it led to the Rockets jumping off to a quick lead. They were up by as much as 18 in the second quarter. They thoroughly dominated the first half, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But then, right as that second half turned, the Charlotte Hornets caught fire. About midway through the third quarter, they turned it on. 24-8 run. That immediately put them right back in the game. It became a back and forth battle in the fourth quarter. LaMelo Ball, fantastic down the stretch. Trey Mann, fantastic down the stretch. And Charlotte was able to hold on and get a huge victory. Overall, fantastic game for LaMelo Ball. He had 34 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists. He shot 50% from the field and was fantastic down the stretch for the Hornets, getting 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists in the fourth quarter alone. Miller leaving with injury early in the game, Trey Mann stepped up and was massive down the stretch for the Hornets. He finished with 24 points, 6 rebounds, and an assist. He shot 50% from the field. And let's just think about this in the big picture for a second for the Hornets. They were without Brandon Miller. They were without Mark Williams. They were playing short-handed, and they were down 18 points to a team that is trying to make a play-in spot this year and is one of the best young teams in the league in the Houston Rockets. They showed heart. They showed passion. They were great on the defensive side of the ball. They never gave up. If I were a Charlotte Hornets fan, I would be so encouraged with the way they played right now. They were shorthanded, and they still came out with a great win against a solid young Rockets team. Had their chances. They just did not have a good night on the offensive side of the ball. They took 103 shots, but shot just 37% from the field and 30% from 3. Alperen Şengün, he was probably their best player tonight. 25 points, 18 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals. Shot just under 50%, but he had only a great first half. He had 19 points and 13 rebounds in the first half, played really strong early on, but was neutralized really well by Charlotte in the second half. Interesting night for Jalen Green. He finished with 28 points, 2 rebounds, did not get a single assist, and it was a tale of two different games for him. In the first and fourth quarter, he looked really strong and in fact was the Rockets' best player down the stretch of the game. But in both the second and third quarter, he was just ice cold. I think he made 2 shots combined out of like 12, 13 attempts in those 2 quarters. It's the type of hot and cold game that Jalen Green plays. Fred VanVleet did not have a good night for the Rockets. He had 14 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, was a putrid 4 of 18 from the field, just was not able to hit anything in his first game coming off of what was a pretty solid season for him in Houston last year. Great first half, quiet second half. It was a quiet night as well for Jabari Smith. Same thing with Dylan Brooks. And just in general, the Rockets' offense could not really hit anything. And it led to them losing in this shocking way. They completely collapsed in the second half, and they did deserve to lose. If you watch that game, you replay it, Houston deserved to lose that game. They were sleepwalking down the stretch. They weren't hitting their shots, and Charlotte clearly wanted it more, and it showed in the end. Another win Friday in Atlanta, and Houston is also playing Friday night, but they're home against the Memphis Grizzlies. The shorthanded Memphis Grizzlies holding off a strong comeback attempt from the Utah Jazz as they won 126 to 124. Memphis had a great first half thanks to their defense. They were up by as much as 17. They held Utah to a really inefficient first half, so a more back and forth quick start to this game turned into a Memphis run near the end of the first quarter, and Memphis also went on a run to start the second quarter, helped them build this big lead. They were up by as much as 17. But in the second half, Utah started to gradually come back. Their shots really started falling. They were having a much more efficient second half from the field, and then they went on a massive 17-3 run to start the fourth quarter. It put them right back in the game. It made the fourth quarter a back and forth battle, but some unfamiliar and unexpected saviors for the Memphis Grizzlies in Santi Aldama and Jay Huff came in and saved the day for them as Memphis was able to hold on and get the win. Aldama, he led the Grizzlies in scoring last night, 27 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 10 of 16 shooting, 5 of 10 from 3. Did a sensational job in place of the injured Jaren Jackson Jr. He fit in perfectly. He had a lot of chemistry with Ja Morant as well, who finished the night with 22 points, 5 rebounds, 10 assists, goes an efficient 7 of 12 in his first game in months. Another guy, just like Zach LaVine, had a bit of issues, but for shaking the rust off, he looked really good, and he had that gorgeous up, hey, left-handed lay, got me out of my seat. It was a beautiful move at the end of the game, and it was a clutch bucket as well. Started off cold, going just 2 of 7 in the first half, but then he caught fire in the second half. He finished with 24, 4, and 4, so despite his 2 and 7 start, he was huge for the Grizzlies down the stretch. He even went 4 of 12 for 3 from them. Absolutely nobody is going to overreact to Zach Edey's bad first game performance. Nobody at all. He finished with 5 points, 5 rebounds, did foul out, was not good on the glass, but guys, it's one game. It's literally his first game ever. Let's not go crazy over it. He didn't play well. There's 81 games left in the season. Jay Huff, a guy who had been in Denver's G League system for the last few years, came in, had a fantastic first game to his season. 13 points, 5 rebounds, was massive down the stretch as well. He had a few big buckets in the fourth quarter to help the Grizzlies, and it was nice to see not only the Grizzlies' star players have good games, Ja and Bane played well, like I said earlier, but seeing these guys like Aldama and Huff and Marcus Smart have good games. It shows how much depth the Grizzlies have, and when they get fully healthy, I do think that they are a scary team. It was an all-around sensational performance for Lauri Markkanen. He had 35 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, a super efficient night, 9 of 15 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3, and he was really valuable in every quarter for Utah too. It's not like he had any bad quarters in this game. He was consistent throughout and helped keep Utah in this game and bring them back late. Has to be really reassuring for Utah fans is the way that Walker Kessler played. He had a really strong night, 16 points, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks, was very efficient and provided a lot of value on both sides of the ball. Hendricks had a pretty good night as well. He had 12 points, 5 rebounds, 4 of 7 from the field and 3 of 5 from 3. Jordan Clarkson, he had 17, 5, and 7, but he was 7 of 16, had a few really good quarters, but he had an inefficient fourth quarter. Another guy that played well, Colin Sexton, he had a really efficient 16, 2, and 3, but unfortunately, Keontae George had a big-time dud for Utah. He had 12 points, 2 rebounds, 7 assists. On paper, that's not bad, but he was a really rough 3 of 18 from the field. It's one game. Don't overreact to it too much, but he really hurt Utah a lot tonight. They get another win Friday in Houston, while Utah looks to bounce back with a win at home against Golden State on Friday. Golden State destroying the Portland Trail Blazers, winning this one 139 to 104. They jumped off to a quick start in this one. They took a 12-3 lead early on, but near the end of the first quarter, Golden State countered. They went on a run of their own. It was more of a back and forth beginning to the first half, and then about midway through the second, near the end of the second quarter, Golden State went on a run to end the half. They had a very strong second frame, took a double-digit lead into the half. They took the momentum from the end of that first half and just blew the game wide open in the third quarter. It seemed like they could do no wrong. It seemed like they couldn't miss any shot. They were playing great defense. The Warriors were just dominating this game at every single facet. They went on as big as a 25-7 run at one point. It turned this game from looking like a semi-close game in the beginning to a total laugher. The game was an all-around effort for Golden State. They had 10, yes, count them, 10 players with at least 8 points in the game tonight. It seemed like almost everybody was contributing for Golden State, and their leading scorer was Buddy Hield in his first game as a Warrior. He had 22 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist, an efficient 8 of 12 from field. He was 5 of 7 from 3. He was part of the Warriors' amazing shooting night where they went 51.6% from the field and 41.7% from 3. The Warriors made 20 shots from long distance. They took 48 of their 93 attempts from downtown. A solid all-around game. He had 17 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 of 7 from 3. He did that in just 25 minutes. Pelicans had 20 points. He was 8 of 15 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3 in just 23 minutes as well. Trace Jackson Davis, he had a perfect night from the field and had 14 points, and Moses Moody had 15 points of his own and shot just under 50%. Had 10 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist, but he was an inefficient 3 of 9 from the field. De'Anthony Melton also had an inefficient night in his first game as a Warrior, but he did play some really good defense, had 3 steals, 10 points, but was just, I believe, 3 or 4 of 11 from the field. Wasn't his best shooting night, but did play some great defense. And Pods also didn't have that good of a night. He was 0 of 5 from the field, and none of this really mattered. Golden State still won by 30-plus points and still had a great night on the offensive side of the ball. The Warriors showed a lot of depth tonight. They played really well, and their offense looks great. It looked great all preseason, and it looked great tonight as well. Pacers' Scoot Henderson led them in scoring, 22 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, but he was just 39% from the field, and that's kind of the story for Portland's offense in general. As a team, they also shot 39%, and they were a brutal 8 of 34 from long distance. They had a horrible night on the offensive side of the ball, and once Golden State's shots started falling like they did at the end of the second and the beginning of the third quarter, the game was a wrap. A solid game for Portland. He was 11, 6, and 4 with a few steals. He was also 50% from 3. 15, 7, and 2 in his Portland debut. He was 4 of 10 from the field. Jeremy Grant had 16, 2, and 3, but he was a really inefficient 6 of 18. DeAndre Ayton started off the game well, and he ended the game with a double-double, but really only had a good first quarter. Anthony Simons, he had 15, 2, and 3. He was 5 of 12 from the field, and just overall, not a good night for the Portland Trailblazers. You saw Ryan Rupert have a few nice plays here and there. Donovan Clingan, he got his first career basket, and he had a defensive moment here and there, but just not a game the Blazers fans are going to want to watch over again. And this is something that's probably going to happen a lot to them this year. We all know that Portland is not really trying to win games, and it's such a stacked Western Conference, they seem to be the worst of the bunch. To start out 2-0 Friday in Utah, while the Trailblazers have another home game Friday against the Pelicans. We had the Phoenix Suns win 116 to 113 in overtime against the Los Angeles Clippers in the first ever game at the Intuit Dome. The first half, this game reminded me a lot of the Philadelphia-Milwaukee game we watched earlier. The Clippers had a bunch of extra chances, but they weren't able to hit anything, while Phoenix, while they had less chances, was able to gradually take the lead as they were able to hit a few more shots than the Clippers were. Unlike the Sixers-Bucks game, the Clippers were finally able to start really capitalizing on their chances in the third quarter. They went on a big run to take the lead and claw their way back into this game, turning this into a battle in the fourth quarter that, for most of it, it looked like the Clippers were going to win it. Clippers being up 9 with just 4 minutes to go, and then the Suns went on a huge 11-0 run to retake the lead. Kevin Durant and James Harden made us feel like it was 2017 all over again, with them going back and forth down the stretch, both of them hitting clutch buckets to send it to overtime, and then a back and forth overtime throughout most of it. The Clippers had their chances. They were down 2, 8 seconds left. Harden had 2 free throws, but he went 1 of 2. The Suns were able to make both of their free throws, and then Grayson Allen was able to strip James Harden on the final shot attempt, and the Suns were able to hold on and barely squeak by with the victory. This quiet fourth quarter, it was an overall great night for Bradley Beal. He had 24 points, 3 rebounds, and assists. He was a very efficient 8 of 12 from the field, along with going 4 of 6 from the 3, and he had 7 of the Suns' points in overtime. Quiet for most of the game, Kevin Durant had a big fourth quarter. He finished the night with 25 and 7, but his heroics were huge late. He had a bunch of baskets late in that final frame, including the shot that sent it to overtime. A gorgeous one-on-one move, showing why he is one of the best one-on-one scorers of all time. Also looked really good in his Suns debut. 11 points, 2 rebounds, 8 assists, 50% shooting, had some solid defensive moments. He fit in like a glove there, especially in this Mike Budenholzer style offense. They needed a true point guard, and I think they have that in Tyus Jones. They played a lot more of Budenholzer ball, by the way. 78 shots for the Suns, 38 of them were from long distance. A lot more shooting from downtown for Phoenix, and expect that a lot more this year. He was also able to get the win despite Devin Booker being fouled out for overtime. He had 15, 4, and 6 on the night, took just 9 shots, but was a really strong 4 of 5 from long distance. He was having a really good fourth quarter before he fouled out too. Quiet 8-point night. When you make a play at the end of the game like Grayson Allen did, the game-winning defensive play, all of those issues are forgotten. He made a great defensive play on James Harden to steal the game, and even though the Suns as a team took way less shots than the Clippers did, and that was partially due to the 22 turnovers that they had, even though they forced 21 Clippers turnovers, they were able to get an opening night win. Such an interesting night for James Harden. He had 29 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, and he was inefficient. He was just 10 of 28 shooting, but here's the thing. The Clippers are not in this game without Harden's 16-point barrage in the third quarter, and he did hit a few big buckets late in the fourth quarter to send it to overtime. Thing is, he didn't play very well in overtime, and he missed that vital free throw. But you can't really blame him for this game. I get it. You look at the stats, 10 of 28, misses the free throw. You're going to try and pin it on him, but you also have to realize if you really watch that game, without James Harden, the Clippers would have never had a chance to win. Also really turned it on in the third quarter and second half as he finished the night with 21 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and he was also very efficient, going 8 of 13 from the field. Jr. had a solid first game as a Clipper. He had 12 points, 4 rebounds, efficient 5 of 6 shooting. Amir Coffey saved his scoring for the final frame. He had all 11 of his points in the fourth quarter. Didn't really do much in overtime, but he was vital to sending that game to overtime. Chris Dunn showed some great defense like always. He was 50% from the field with 5 points as well. And Kai Jones had a few buckets of his own. Showed a lot of promise, and we're in a dogfight with a playoff team even without Kawhi Leonard. They just need their guards to be a little more efficient. Harden's one of the guys, but I mean, he scored 29 points. You're not going to really get that mad at him, but I would have liked to see more from Norman Powell. He had a really inefficient night, and Kevin Porter Jr. in his first NBA game in a year and a half, in a while due to off-the-court issues, was just 1 of 8 in his first game back. Looking to get another win against the LA team as they take on the Lakers in LA on Friday night, while the Clippers travel to Denver to take on the Nuggets Saturday. Includes the 10-game slate from yesterday in the NBA. You guys watch this to the very end. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God bless, and I will be back tomorrow recapping the 4 games that are happening today.